Thanks, Sonal. I hope the efforts of people like you and others in this room will help finally spark a wine revolution in India, which has been a long time coming, shall I say. Yeah. Uh, our run-through to lunch is a couple of panel discussions and one talk. Our first panel discussion coming up is on the, I think, the frontier breaking area of D2C, the new route to brand building. I'd like to welcome on stage the moderator for this discussion, Mr. Prakash. Keshav is the founder of Malt Fine Spirits, as well as the Malt Biennale, which I think is a name in change. And his panelists are Hemanth Rao, the founder of the Single Malt Amateur Club. Hemanth, are you with us? There you are, back at the back. Mr.Aslam Gafoor, General Manager Luxury Dining at Dineout. And Anjali Batra, co-founder and CMO, Food Talk India. I'd like to welcome them all on stage. That will be followed briefly by a talk by Gokul Tirumalai from Linda Labs, and finally a panel discussion, branded retail, which will be moderated by me. So that will carry on us through till about 1:45, and then we break for lunch. Keshav, over to you. Break a leg.
Check. Thank you, Vikram. Always a pleasure to be back in home city, right? Best dosas anywhere. Just a sec. All right, let's kick off, right? Right. And so D2C, we'll jump straight in without any other short intros. D2C is not a new concept, right? Older forms of it have existed via catalog marketing. Airlines had these catalogs, right, giving you very old school D2C, right? But I think current assumption of D2C is it is digital to consumer. Correct? When you talk about D2C, hey, what is D2C happening? We assume that it is meant to be digital to consumer, right? Well, let's park it there, and this is what we're discussing. What really is D2C, correct? And what does alcohol brands can do to build themselves via D2C? So as per a recent business report I was reading, the D2C market size for lifestyle products, all lifestyle, including alcohol, in India could be around $60 billion in 5 years. $60 billion in 5 years is what we categorize as the lifestyle products, right? Jewelry, all of that put together. With direct online contributing to only about $20 billion. Right, in 5 years. So 60 billion, 20 billion. Where is the remaining going, right? Which means omni-channel. That is where it is. So omni-channel. So D2C opportunities are even broader spectrum of lifestyle products, right? And Amulya mentioned in his Euro Monitor thing, and I was having a chat with him recently, that online sales for Alcobev in APAC region, online sales of Alcobev in APAC region where it's allowed, was only 5% of the overall business, right? So these are all surprises to me where you think other markets where online is like flourishing and taking off. And globally, the online business versus, conventional off-trade business is only 3.5%. So globally, only 3.5% of alcohol sales is happening online, correct? This possibly removes the myth that many of us seem to believe or assume that e-commerce and online would be the magic bullet that will get us sales through stratosphere, right? As industry, I think in a strange way, that's good news to me, that online is not the magic bullet, because as a founder of a company that distributes a couple of brands, about 40 brands of craft spirits, I am relieved that I do not have to wear this online battle suit and compete with the big boys. Because even there it's a war, correct? So how much of this D2C consumer scope apply to Alcobev, right? What is the opportunity via D2C? And what are brands doing now and could do despite being weighed down by regulations and compliance, correct? This is what is the bookends of today's conversation, is regulation, compliance on one end and the opportunity on the other end, right? So to chat with me about this wonderful panel, Anjali Batra,
Hi, Keshav.
right?
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Co-founder, CMO of Food Talk India, and the wonderful Gin Explorers Club, right? And Aslam Gafoor, GM Luxury Dining, Dineout, a D2C platform. You know the impact of D2C. Very early days, you've been in business, and wonderfully rewarded by a solid evaluation recently. Congratulations on that, right? And Hemanth Rao, founder, the real reason I traveled to Bangalore today, to be honest, runs Single Malt Amateur Club based out of Bangalore. And by the way, all of you are invited to his house. He's opening some 30-year-old malts, right? There. Let's start. And okay, just a series of just a few questions, and I thought each of us could take this and just lay out the land of what D2C is all about, right? So this question applies to each of you, and we'll just take, say, 90 seconds just to answer that. What was the original purpose, ethos of your platform when it started out? What is the origin, correct? Yeah, I think we'll take it from there, correct? What is the original ethos when you started Dineout? And what was the origin, the thought process, you or whoever founded it? And how has it evolved now, correct? There's a mic that needs to work, Pratibha. Cool.
Yeah, this is working.
Cool. How did Dineout start? Why it started? What was the origin thing? Very quick take on that.
Thanks, Keshav. So Dineout, as most of you know, is a table reservation and discovery platform, or rather I put it the other way, a discovery and reservation platform. And that's how we started almost about 10 years back. What happened as we went along is we found that the diner was looking at all these restaurants and all the cuisines that they wanted to dine at, the restaurant that they wanted to dine at, but they were also looking for an experience. And guess what? We had the database of all these diners sitting with us. We knew who loved Chinese, who loved the single malt, and who loved their beers. And we felt that is there a way to actually build some amount of experience or experiential dining into this whole ecosystem. And that's when Dineout actually acquired a brand called Gourmet Passport, which is a membership platform. And what Dineout Passport did is, while we are an online company and we are sending people to an offline, to an offsite and offline location, we felt that there was a touch point required at some point of time to engage with these diners, which is, normally they were booking and they were just going on their own. And we started what we call the experiential dining sessions. And they started off very simple. We would actually invite our members and some prospective members to partake of a new menu that got released, maybe paired with a beer or something like that. But we found three very interesting aspects that got built into it. One was the whole lifestyle angle. The second was the aspiration that people were looking at, and also the experiential side of it. So these dining platforms, you fast forward to the last maybe a year or two, this minus the COVID angle, they've kind of elevated to a point. And I remember Paul John was one of our first partners with the single malt journey. We actually created a series of dining experiences which were direct to consumer engagement. And that's actually gone on with Dineout, and we've become a platform which not only offers the online reservation and discovery, but now we are also doing this whole high touch activity. In fact, the recent one we just concluded was with Pernod Ricard, and with Ableur 12, 16 and 18, we did a 7-city, 7 premium hotel dining experience where we termed it Malt and Jazz. So, and great food, of course. So there were hotels like the Leela and the Shangri-La and so on and so forth that were actually part of this experience. So we've come a long way in terms of how the business started and where it is.
Great. So that's effective use of a bandwidth that you have created. Now brands are actually, utilizing your community to build their brands, and that's a fantastic way to go because it's laser targeted, niche. They know exactly who they are getting to the room, right? Hemant, over to you. Where did it all start, and was it a personal, was it kind of a personal passion that led to the start of this? And did you imagine that you would be starting out and ending up to actually create a platform where brands could ride on?
Not really, Keshav. I think so.
Just hold the mic a little closer. Yeah.
Can you guys hear me? All right. So the reason why I created the platform was largely to drink whiskey. So let's start there. I think so. That's the prime reason. In 2011, when I started this club, when I started this forum of getting people together, I think so it was largely because there were not many available at that point of time. And in India, where probably the knowledge about the spirits, the types of whiskies that are available was very nascent at that point of time. There was a lot of hesitation to even ask questions around it. The brands that people talked about in the media, social media was not prevalent as it is right now. But when it was at that point of time, I think that the whiskies that they spoke about and the way that they narrated their tasting notes around it was extremely different from what people in India would understand it. So I think so largely to get people together. I didn't imagine that it would probably grow and we'd have a huge number of followers actually waiting for us to give experiences and things like that. But well, it has. And we are extremely proud to be associated with multiple brands, both from India and from outside, to be able to actually present them a platform in which they can interact with consumers directly who are actually curious about this whiskey, right from curiosity to actual followership. I think so there's a big journey there itself, and allowing anyone and everyone who are curious about it to join the club. I think so that's been our success motto. We are amateurs at the end of the day, keep learning every day. So never imagine that I'd be sitting here and you'd be inviting this team across to my house. So, well, Keshav.
Or the whole room to your house tonight, huh? And Anjali, wonderful platform. It started with food, correct? Then you picked, and very nicely picked, the kind of the curiosity over gin, correct? Give a brief intro of both these platforms, how they intermingle, where they cross over to each other, and how are brands kind of using you now?
So, can you? So we started, me and my business partner started Food Talk India about 8 years back. People thought we were stupid. We created an invite-only exclusive group on Facebook, which moved away from the concept of journalists and food critiques and said, here's a space for people to be able to come and have authentic dialogue around food. So it was real people sharing real-time recommendations, and it became a community in itself where strangers became friends because they were having conversations about what to eat, where to travel, what I ate, what you should avoid. Restaurants were shut down because of us, because there was some really raw, authentic reviews that were put out there. But it gave the consumer a voice and a place to finally have an opinion. And this led for us to understand, listen, if we can bring people together online to have a discussion over food, what happens if we physically bring them together? And that's when we started curating experiences. And we started building our first couple of IPs. The first one was Dinner with Strangers, which was exactly what our digital platform was. Strangers coming together and having conversations over food. And food became this universal language that just made you all become one. So a few of these experiments finally led us to become a business, because we were of course not making any money selling 1,500 rupee tickets for people to come and eat a meal. But that's when the space of alco beverage brands realized these guys have a captivated audience that is spending money going out and coming and eating these meals together, how can I use this as an opportunity to plug in my product? And in fact, Meenakshi sitting right here was the first, I think, event we had ever done together at Speakeasy, where Jameson saw this as a great opportunity and said, while you're all coming together and mixing, can I mix my alcohol in this combination too? And that's where our journey of being an experiment to being a business really started. And we started building IPs for brands because in India, with all of the restrictions, alcohol beverage cannot market itself as it is. So they have to piggy bank on experiences like all the platforms we all here have created. And that sort of journey continued, and now of course we have about 8 years of consumer behavior insight, and we provide that as strategy solutions for brands. That's one side of what I do. The other side is the Gin Explorers Club. Similar to Hemanth here, I took something that I personally loved and decided to put it onto an entire country. And I fell in love with gin about 9 or 10 years back when I was working in an agency, and we launched Hendrix in India, and I was blown away. What is this brand that doesn't just call the socialites of the city and say, please sip, and then tell your friends about it, but they build a universe and they immerse you into it, and that is what I like to do as a profession. I like to be a storyteller. And when the gin space had just started buzzing globally about, I think now 5 years back, I wrote this word down on one of my soul-searching long trips, Gin Explorers Club, and we came back and created this experimental event, and we said we'll build the canvas and we let gin brands that are products that have so much of a story to tell just come in and narrate their stories. And we'll bring in the right people for this. And here we are, 5 years later, with having had over 50,000 people, over 45 different brands pop up at different editions, and the community is growing, and it's been a very exciting journey.
I know. Hold on to the mic. Check. I attended the one in Mumbai, your very first one, but what a phenomenal success that was.
Thank you so much.
Right? And it was beautifully done. But let me start with you on say that, but what has been the growth that you see? What I'm trying to get at is the consumer hunger now, correct? Rewind 10 years ago, it was direct marketing, not D2C. What is the necessity of, you feel, of D2C, especially when it comes to alcohol brands? Yes, there is challenges, regulatory compliance. It's been the same kind of regulatory compliance for the last, how many ever years. What is the graph that the audience is demanding, what is the behavior pattern that we are trying to tap? Hence the necessity of D2C, and what have you seen when you first started, even GEC, which is a relatively new platform, 5 years old?
Correct.
But what has been the growth from edition 1 to the one where people were struggling to get into in Mumbai?
Keshav, I think for us in the 8 years that we've been doing this, we've seen there is a hunger for consumers to now not just go out for a regular meal. That's why platforms like Dineout exist. They're giving you a package experience that is a little bit beyond what you regularly walk into a restaurant. The hunger increases as the awareness for it increases. As there is more and more available, as you increase the supply, the demand is increasing, but at 4 times the rate. There isn't enough supply out there right now. It's a place where there is so much more that we can do. And in fact, I don't know if you know this, but we did a long research for you guys last year when Swiggy was looking to launch that division. I'm hoping it does happen. There was a lot of sweat and blood we put into it. But larger platforms like Dineout, etc., are now trying to build larger scalable experiences that are not just for the creme de la creme or even for only your tier 1, but tier 2, tier 3 cities as well, because people don't just want to go out for a meal. If there is the option of getting an experiential meal, why not? Why should it all have to be priced at 8,000 or 10,000 rupees a table with a Michelin star chef? Why cannot not be something that I can access on a Wednesday or a Friday of any given day of any week? So I think there is a massively growing demand for the experience vertical, and that gives a beautiful canvas for brands to be able to come in and plug themselves in to a place where the consumer is already going every day, because you're going to restaurants, and especially after that massive surge that we've all seen right now, even on a Monday or a Tuesday night, if you walk into a restaurant, you will see they're almost at capacity. So if they can take that opportunity in that space and say, let's build things in the on-trade space itself, I think that's a great starting point for brands.
Thank you. Hemant, you started because it was a personal passion of yours that you wanted to share, correct, with others. And now, of course, it's taken on its own avatar and organically grown, correct? But early days when you were chatting with friends to now actually people willing to invest time, energy, money, right, to kind of upgrade their lifestyle, curiosity, whatever it might be. Just give a little insight on what have you seen growth, let's say from year 2 when SMAC went public to kind of now, right? I'm trying to understand how fast is this market growing. What I'm trying to get at is, hence, why do brands even need platforms? Why do they need D2C? Correct? Is the market racing ahead so fast that we need multiple things to catch up? Right? Give us an insight of what actually is happening in the kind of the growth, and are you able to keep up with it?
Sure, Keshav. And can you? All right. Interesting question, and I use very common stat to actually gauge this. And I think so in terms of speed of acceleration, last 5 years has been absolutely phenomenal. Pandemic has fueled the growth to a frenzy, absolute, in terms of the followership, in terms of interest for single malt whiskies, and the experimental behavior of the people actually interested in that spirit. But the stat that I'd like to share is that probably in 2014, if we were to actually count the number of single malt brands, and I'm not talking about the special Walt and Biennale editions or Amrit Amaze that we release exclusively for the club, we're talking about the brands that are available to public. We would have been 4 or 5. We did a similar survey around a year back. 28 Indian single malt whiskies are available to the retail public today. And that goes a great distance to show that the brands themselves are more confident about what's happening in the market. Platforms like ours has actually helped to a certain extent, because I think so the conversion from the curious to the actual interested, these platforms give them an opportunity. And as I was saying, 2 years ago, the number of people that would fork out money for an experience such as this would still be very hesitative. We did a whiskey trail to Singapore, and my partner and myself, Harsha, were always wondering, would people actually travel to Singapore to drink whiskey? And we did. So that goes to show that the market is more than ready. It's probably the route in which the consumers are going to be able to find these experiences, find the experiences that actually suit them. I think so that's going to be the key in the next few years.
Good. I think so. This is what platforms do well, right? Is your ability to be agile enough to seize an opportunity, immediately bring in an author and experience, and execute it, right? Probably in a week's time. And Anjali, I know you also do custom kind of background work for brands on specific requests. If time permitting, we'll chat about it. But Aslam, tell us a little bit about the use of technology in all of this, correct? You're quite a large platform, and now you've been acquired by an even larger one with probably the best of consumer technology to kind of what kind of technology, if you're allowed to talk, how is this technology playing a role into building D2C platforms?
With Dineout, we have the B2B side and the B2C side. So on the B2C side, you see the restaurant listing and you see cuisines, menus and all those things that come up. And because what I think the panel here has just said, that alcohol has been a taboo subject to be spoken in the open, we have actually had collaborations with brands like Diageo, Bacardi, where we use the app real estate to create a user experience at the restaurant. So what that means is there will be a banner that will run within the app, and it will say that if you go to dine at this particular restaurant, you will actually get to sample a Paul John or one of Diageo's drink or Bacardi's new cocktail that came out. And that becomes actually the engagement tool for our diners. So we are actually using technology in that sense. And then we also run something called as a Great Indian Restaurant Festival. And there again, there is a huge focus on the food, but there's an equally big focus on the drinks. And something that Anjali just you mentioned a little while back is about the property that we've created now. So we have an events company called Dineout, and Dineout actually was very Bangalore centric initially. And what they used to do was create some kind of a community market, like a flea market or a beer fair. But now that actually has scaled up a lot. We are doing a few hundred events around the country. In fact, very recently we just concluded a very big cocktail festival in the Taj West End, and it had all the brands out there. So the way we again reach out to our community is through the digital side. So now our app actually is the gateway to reach out to our millions of consumers, which would be impossible if you had to just use maybe just the social media or maybe some email marketing. Here people are actually, the people who own a Dineout app are absolute foodies, and they are always looking at the app and saying, man, like, what could be happening next? Let me just pick and choose. So we work across target audiences. We have the youngsters, we have the millennials, and also the mature audience. And there is something for everyone. And especially this whole event piece where it becomes an experiential activity, that also is now bundled into the whole digital app experience. And that's how it works actually.
Good. I think these are the kind of unique, customized things that add to the intellectual property that you create, right? And which is why each of us could be very different in the platforms. But when we all kind of had a video chat last week, something very important came up, and I actually immediately made a note of it, is to say, okay, brands have very good budgets to spend on direct marketing, activations, whatever they need to do, but still D2C seem to have a place, and platforms like this seem to only be growing. But we spoke about something very important, that was neutrality and trust, correct? What is the role of being neutral as a neutral brand agnostic platform, and the trust because of which a consumer might subscribe to you, each of your platforms readily, as over to, let's say, a brand initiative, correct? Anjali, you were quite, I think, had quite a lot to say on that. So please start from here.
Keshav, I think it all stems down from the fact that it's all about community building. Platforms like ours have built a community because we talk about a larger conglomerate idea of things. A brand will only advocate itself. So as a consumer, do you want to hear someone who's constantly saying, I am best, or do you want to hear someone who's talking to you about everything that's great and then positions brands within that space? So there's a lot more trust built when a community that talks about 100 different things says, here's a great product, I think you should try because these are 3 reasons that we enjoy it, versus a brand who's constantly only talking about itself. So while all of us here and everyone in this room are from the trade, we follow brands because we're in the business of this. We want to know what everyone else is doing. Consumers are not out there following brands. Consumers are not out there getting impacted by someone that's tooting its own horn. They want to hear a neutral voice, like a publication, an e-publication, or a community like what we've all built here. When something like that is telling you about a product or giving you an experience, there's a lot more trust because it's you're following them for everything they're advocating, right? With the two platforms that we've created, one is Food Talk, where we talk about all things food and drink, and the other is the Gin Explorers Club. And even when we started it, we didn't only want to become a gin festival. We said, let's build a community that talks about the category in a much larger space, so that every time we are doing a festival, there is a higher demand for people to come. And that just made us a larger voice than, I would say, a lot of other festival IP platforms that only come alive in that 1 month before to sell tickets.
Good. Hemant, I know you do brand-specific, brand-focused event and experience, like recently you did one for BOMO 15, correct? Well, it's common knowledge, you publish it, and your members do know that that event was subscribed to that brand. But I think you earned a trust enough from your members to know that, fine, it's not just go and just sell out your platform, but you've curated it, and that is why they're willing to subscribe, you know, and attend that event. Have I got it right? Or
Keshav, right to a large extent, I suppose. But one element probably I'd like to add to the conversation would be about the trust is mutual and it's towards the brand as well. I think that as a person who's actually influencing to a certain extent the members as to what's being served on the table, the confidence has to be able to share with the brand what the consumer actually thinks about it. And honest and candid feedback is something that they'd look forward to as well. I think that in terms of single malt whiskey, sharing one's personal thoughts still colors the audience. In my forum at least, we have a lot of curious people. So we avoid doing that to a certain extent, but at the same time, being able to tell them honestly as to what that spirit is all about, what the flavors are all about, and letting them make the choice for themselves is very, very important. So 2 ways I would say, that being able to share back to the brands, saying that this is how your liquid fares in our forum, and allowing members themselves to choose independently without coloring their thoughts. I think so that's been a key element of our club. And I think so it succeeds in a way because people then realize that you're not really selling.
yeah,
You're not advocating for the brand only. I remember, I think so initially when we were doing a lot of events with Amrit, they thought that I was working with Amrit, and then came Paul John. I started working with Paul John, and then I think so the latest is Piccadilly. But thankfully, all of them are great friends. But very important what you said, I think so the trust element both ways from the brand and from the consumer is absolutely crucial for the success for any of our platforms and to grow the market as well.
yeah. Look, good, good. Aslam, just add to this. We don't have to answer the same question, but you're a national platform, right?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
How do you play this game differently across different cultures, pan-India? I mean, how do you cater to direct-to-consumer experiences? You know, how do you manage that?
So I'll just come to that, but I wanted to add something
Please
to
do.
the last part
Feel
of
free.
it. So, you know, in Bangalore, we have a French gourmet association, a gastronomic association, which is called the Chain de Rotation. And you were talking about neutrality and about working closely with brands. So what Shane does is that we curate very eclectic dinners, what we call celebrating the art of the table, around the food and the drinks. And we have the Spirits brand are actually pretty excited to work with us. It's a paid dinner, but they're very excited to work with us, is because no two dinners are the same. So we actually look at what is the beverage that we are going to be serving that day, the Spirit, and what is the food that will be served that day, and we curate an entire experience and we price it and we market it to our members. And I must have, like the SMAC events, these are sellout shows. I mean, literally in 10 minutes they sell out. And we have to disappoint many of our members that, they are unable to be part of it. So just to give you an example, we just did a dinner at Conrad in Bangalore last Sunday. And there's a new chef who's there, and he actually created a theme which was around symbiosis, the art of living together, that is plants, animals, and humans. Yeah. And within that, we wove a story of wines along with the food, and we had Sonaris as a pouring partner that day. They had 5 of their brilliant wines with us. So I just wanted to say that our next dinner is not going to be the same. So every liquor brand or spirits brand is very excited to work with us because they know we are not taking sides and we are not saying this is good or that's not good. We want to work with everyone, and we want to actually showcase a brilliant experience to our members. So that's my take on that front. And as far as quickly to answer the other question that you asked me, clearly things work differently. A beer festival does phenomenally well in Bangalore, so we have to market that a bit. Going back to what I was telling earlier, because the app is designed in such a way that we have a huge CRM tool that sits at the back, and we know exactly what each diner loves, right from their beer to their biryani. So we are able to then target that audience to that city or town and create a EDM experience along with a spirits partner, maybe in Bangalore and Hyderabad, versus maybe in Delhi we'll do something else. So it is different strokes for different folks as we go along, and our app allows us to do that because we are data mining at the back end as to what each diner or consumer is looking for, both from a food and beverage experience.
And I think that's the intelligence that brands want, right? Agile, live intelligence that is happening, and using technology and your understanding of culture and all of that to be able to deliver customized solutions to brands. That's brilliant. I think last few minutes left. We might take questions. Have them ready if you wished. Otherwise, you can ask them offline. But kind of last, where do you see D2C heading? What are we looking through your looking glass, say 3 years from now? Right? Short, just bullet points, 1 minute each. Anjali, start. Where do you see 3 years from now?
I see the space growing massively, and I hope that with all the efforts that we're all putting in, we're able to give enough supply for the demand that is out there right now. And like you were saying, Keshav, it was a struggle for people to get into our festival in Bombay. We provide and created a space for 10,000 people, but there was a demand for more. So we continue to grow bigger, but I think that palpable demand is insatiably high right now. I'm just excited to see where it goes, and I'm excited for the journey that comes along with it.
Hemant.
Still drinking whiskey, I suppose.
Of course. I'm with you on that. Yes.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll have forums such as this, which are having much more active participation. They get larger. I think that the industry getting together with forums such as this is absolutely amazing. We get to hear thoughts about what other people have to say. I was listening to the statistics on social media from Sonal, absolutely stunning. And where I think that we're going to be 3 years from now, I think that irrespective of how much of investment, how much of exploration that brands actually do, the market is still much larger than what we are going to be able to, conquer together as well. So I think the growth is going to be phenomenal. I think so the changes that we're going to see, because every time that we're going to talk about laws around alcohol, we always talk about them as being anarchic and probably out of date. We can see some of them changing, and that will further fuel the growth, in my view.
Aslam.
So
I'll see it with two lenses. So one is actually if you look back 3-4 years and where we are today, and despite the fact that we went through a pandemic, I have clearly seen that the whole experiential side of the business in F&B has grown dramatically. People are seeking unique, exclusive experiences, and that really speaks so much about the different clubs, the F&B club, the wine clubs that exist. And if you look forward, I only feel that there is going to be a bigger demand for that, because what is also happening is being I think aided by the brilliant introduction of some amazing spirits like the gins. This morning we heard about Diageo's portfolio, and there are so many, I mean, if you talk to anyone in Goa, everybody is doing some fabulous gins there. So, and all of them need a platform to reach out to the right audience. And then that audience becomes actually an influencer, and not in the social media sense influencer, but actual a person who talks to some 10 other friends saying, look, you know what, I went through this experience and I loved it, and maybe you should try it. So I think it's going to be a chain reaction, and it's just going to get bigger and more exclusive as time comes by.
More experience driven, tier 2, tier 3 cities asking more. Kind of towards the end. And is there a question anyone asked? There is one at the back there. Sure.
So, can you hear me? Yeah. On a lighter note, Keshav, you were kind enough to introduce the panelists, but you didn't give us Hemanth's address. So we need the address, Hemanth, if you could be kind enough, and we'll join you there tonight for the malts.
Absolutely, there's a gin option as well, I'm sure. From
I don't think she's carrying gins all the way
Thankfully,
from
I'm from Delhi.
No, I think
she's not carrying gins from Delhi, Hemanth. You're my target.
sure. I think what he's trying to say is, can you please accept his malts that he is offering for tonight?
I'm sure there are quite a
We
few.
will accommodate.
No.
We're going to be
We will
exclusive.
accommodate you.
Keshav's way up there, huh? So with Malt, you don't need a Pernod Ricard right now.
But Keshav, I mean, you've heard from us. What I'd probably like is for you to introduce yourself. I'm sure that there are people in the audience who know you already. But why don't you tell us your perspective as well about the subject and what you have done?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Only few minutes left. I want to stick to our time. But Hemanth, our story is not very far from what you started it. The Vault started as a conversation piece as to why were there not too many single malts for us to taste and have conversation around it. I was very interested in the story of whiskey at that point. To keep it short, Vault started as that. I want more conversations, I want to meet more people, but what do you have these conversations around? We need better whiskeys. And this is the time when I think some 7, 8, 9 years ago, craft was just shooting up. There were only about 8 independent Scottish malt distilleries when we started the Vault. So that was what the original thought of Vault was. We've naturally, what you call it, let the market lead us. Today, gin is the largest portfolio in, a number of brands in our portfolio is gins. We have about 16 gins in our portfolio, 6 or 7 malts. But we also take the role of being the drivers of people. Like, this is what we're doing. We sometimes lead the market. What I mean by that is, we, I think, have the only Armagnac in the country, the only Calvados in the country, correct? Mezcals, now there are a few, but when we introduced Mezcal, right, we're trying to break the myth of, not the myth, sorry, we're trying to break the very fact that Old Monk is it in rum, to bringing a 12-year-old, rum and put it out in the market. So a lot of things, I kind of sit down with my co-founder, my wife, Anjan, we sit and say, where do we take the market 3 years from now? Let's put it there. Let it be an organic growth. That has been the Vault, the way it has grown. And of course, we have a festival property. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to announce a very exciting brand change. Again, keeping in times with pre-COVID and now post-COVID, the consumers have changed. I'll tell you an interesting fact. We were 90% an on-trade brand, which means Horeca, pre-COVID. Retailers could not understand us at all pre-COVID. They were like, you're too eclectic, too expensive, we do not know. So we were a B2B2C company, catering via Horeca to reach consumers. Come COVID, that came to 0, but we went from 5 retailers to 70 retailers during COVID. This was the demand from consumers. So we were like agile. So this is how the Vault is growing. The festival is a part of our, celebratory nature to bring people in. It's a festival that focuses on storytelling as versus drinking. Hence, it is a day festival. So February, Mumbai, Geo Gardens, as big as it can get. Last week of Feb, dates to be announced soon. Save your date and please be there. I promise you it's going to be something phenomenal, right? Thank you. Thank each of you for taking the time, Vikram, to put together. Vikram has a question. You have 15 seconds, Vikram.
Can you hear me? Yeah,
Yeah,
I can hear
yeah.
me. Some of you all on the stage during the pandemic launched either digital experiences or hybrid experiences. Do you see this as something which will sustain post the ebbing of whatever we've seen so far? Or is that gone from?
I'll start. So while we did some digital experiences, we also did a lot of in-home experiences. So as an extension of the festival, we said, hey, everyone's stuck with those 5-6 brands that are available locally right now of gin. And we created a gin infusion kit where you buy a kit, it came with all of the ingredients and you could sort of create it at home. And what was very interesting to see was the kind of cities that we were getting sales from. People from Siliguri and Orissa are buying gin infusion kits, and I didn't even know people are drinking gin there. So that's one vertical, honestly, Vikram, for us that is only continuing to grow bigger and larger from here. Virtual experiences, I don't think people want to spend time in front of a screen anymore. Now you want to go out and you want to meet people and you want to touch and feel and have experience in flesh and blood. But the whole space of premiumization in the in-home thing has been something that even from the food space we've seen a lot, because the whole space of cloud kitchens as well has revolutionized in the last 2 years, from the quality of food to the kind of packaging. Gourmet burgers are now, rolling into every home. So the in-home consumption has become a lot more premium than it was pre-COVID.
Vikram, I'd rather share the room with you in person and have that drink over the table and with the lovely folk out here rather than doing it online. I think so it had its success initially because of the curiosity and lack of options. But when we talk about alcohol industry as such, my personal view has been saying that people are out with a vengeance now. They just want to be out there. A conversation such as this, probably there would be some success that could be met. But when we're talking about experiential dinners around alcohol, I really think that in person, I'm really looking forward to what Keshav has already announced. Reserve some bottles, Keshav, please.
And I echo the same because I think the virtual and digital experience was a stopgap arrangement. It was not really meant to be where we are today. So premium experiences cannot be boxed, basically. You need to be in a real room with real people and a high-touch environment. So I guess that's how it's
I'm so happy it is that way because, it's people meeting people and exchanging stories and experiences. That's what makes it. So just last 30 seconds, promise, conclusion remarks, but, this is what my thoughts were after talking to them, and I spoke to a lot of people in preparing for this chat, is D2C is an absolute necessary for brands. It is possibly going to be a life vest and save should there be a switch in regulations, right, that prevents you from doing your regular direct marketing and whatever that is, or rough times during pandemic, because D2C is a platform that knows its consumers, exactly what to curate to. So I think this is only going to grow, but I don't think D2C is a route to market for you to push volumes. It is not a route to market to push your sales, but it's going to give brands crucial data, correct? Either via media or directly. It's going to give you data. And more importantly than all of that, what is very, very crucial is going to give you your relationship with the consumer, correct? That is priceless, and that is what was missing in our industry. That is what is being met through platforms, and the more brands engage direct to consumer, the more they own that community. Thank you so much, right? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Keshav. Thank you, Anjali. Thank you, Aslam. Thanks, Hemant. I'd like to invite on stage Dhananjay Sardesh Pandey, the editor of Brews and Spirits, to kindly present a memento for the panelists.